Hey there guys, and welcome to the next video, section 3, where we're going to be talking about forms. Now, you are typically going to want to have individuals input data into a form which will populate your boards. And in today's video, I'm going to show you how you can build them, how you can distribute them, and also a couple of nuances around the forms. Okay, so first off, let's talk about how you can add a form. Now, to add a form, it's to your board, it's a view. You would click on exactly how you added the view from the previous video. You'll see form here. Now, what I'm going to show you is I'm going to show you how we can do, there's a couple of things you can do in the form where I'm going to show you how you can hide certain questions, how you can make questions required, and we also want to maybe take a look at the way that we can do the conditional logic. So, if you want to hide a question, so for instance, when people are filling out my form, what I want them to do is add a task. Now, if they're adding a task, I don't want them to tell me what the status is. That must be done once the task is created. So I'm going to hide that question. And you just click on this hide icon. Same for on time. I'm also going to hide that, and I'm going to hide my hourly rate. Okay, so that is how you hide questions. Over here, you can rename. So task name. This doesn't change the name of the column on the table, by the way. And obviously, this is required. I don't want this to be empty. Same with due date. Task type I do want to show, and I want to make this required. And here I also want to show how we can do a condition. So you can also delete certain columns from in your form. If that column has data, you can't. So you'll have to remove all the data in the column before you can delete it from the form. Okay, now with your task type, right? Let's say we want to include a condition, and we want to say if answer is type 1, we are going to say short text, and we're going to say this will show. Okay, so basically that means if they click on type 1, that question is going to show. If they do type 2 and type 3, it won't. So let's just go in and take a look at exactly what our task is looking like. Well, there we go. If I click on type 1, you'll see the question show. If I click on type 2, now it doesn't. Right. Now, you'll notice that I've got these question type locks, and what I also want to point out is that there are certain things on here that you may or may not be able to do. The reason why I've got these questions is because I am on a beta program with Monday.com. In my next course, Monday.com Best Practices, Advanced Techniques, and so on, I talk about how you can get onto these programs and how you can access these features. So we're going to restrict the form access. Now, this gives us the ability to assign a person using the people column and assign a project, the connect boards column. Previously in Monday.com, you weren't able to use these columns in the form, so it's fantastic that they've brought them. Okay, now that's typically how you can build your form. Now let's talk about designing your form. So to design your form, it's quite easy. You can add custom colors in the background, or you can add your own images. You can also add a logo by just clicking on the upload logo, and you can come over here. Let's see if I've got one that I can use. We'll just use this dollar logo for now. Okay, so I see a dollar. What we can also do is we can choose how we want the question. So do we want all of the questions on one document, or do we want to ask it question one at a time? Sometimes this works depending on what you want. And then here you can then choose exactly how you want the form, where you want the form to sit on the desktop. Lastly, you're able to choose the font, so you can choose Roboto, Rubric, and so on. Okay, and then you can also change the direction. So that is how you can kind of customize this board. The next thing is that we can also hide the branding from Monday.com, so the Monday.com icon will disappear. You can change the button, so we can say add task, right? And then after submission, we can then say task added, maybe an exclamation mark. We can then choose if additional submissions, and we can say submit another, right? You can also send it to another URL if you want them to redirect somewhere. And then lastly, what you can do is you can select which group you want your task to be added. So I want it to be in the to be started group. And then if you click this icon, it gives us a really cool way to be able to add tasks in the board. And I'm going to show you that quickly as well. And then lastly, what I also want to point out is this is how you can publish them. So you can share the link with your team. You can also embed it, which is really cool. You can put this onto your website, have people fill out a contact form, and it will instantly populate on your Monday.com board. So that's really cool. And then lastly, you've got a couple of form restrictions here where you can redirect account members if they're not signed in. So that way they have to be signed into Monday.com. Or what you can do is you can stop submissions on a specific date. And then lastly, you can deactivate the form. And if you need to use it again, you can easily come back and activate it. Right. In my other course, I'm going to teach you how to deal with the storage of forms across the company, because the problem is sometimes you can have lots of forms and you'll have a link, and typically what I find with companies is they sometimes lose track of exactly where the form is going, especially if you've got tons of Monday.com boards. It gets very confusing. So in my best practices video, I'm going to show you how we deal with that. All right, but let us, there's just two things I wanted to add here because I see that these are not showing. So we'll have the person and we will have the project. Right, so let us go and preview what's this going to look like. So we can go task name Darren. We're going to assign Darren to this. Darren needs to finish this today. It's a type 2, and we can assign it to the project. You add the task, and now I can submit another one. And if you come into my board, you can see over here that the item has been created. And remember that little checkbox where you said can be used internally? This is where it comes. So you can actually add this in the new item via form. If you click on this button, it will then open up like a little bit of a pop-up where you can then fill out that information. And that's really cool. And that's pretty much forms. I really hope you got some good value from this and see how you can build a form to input the data you want in your board. Anyway, see you in the next video. Take care.